watching the time just ticking. Clock runs around, days in and out, can't really call it living. Somewhere I let light go dark, but here's where my new story starts. Take my life.
Hello, welcome to Heart of the Tribe. My name is Shel Wagner. I am so glad that you came to join me today. It's such an honor to be here. I just want to take a moment and say thank you so much to two friends who've made this happen. One is my friend Nitza Moshe, who I've been friends with for a long time, who is a regular here on Messianic Lamb. She's from Remnant Remedy. So thank you, Nitza, for introducing me to Mark. And Mark Smith, thank you so much for opening up your platform and allowing me to share my heart. And I'm really looking forward to sharing and getting to know the audience. This is my first time, so I'm getting used to operating everything. I'm not the most technical person in the world, but Mark's given me some great instruction, and so I'm going to go with that. As I was reflecting on what I wanted to share today, it hit me that we have entered into a new season, and that new season would be winter. Winter has arrived, and I am a gardener. I'm not a great gardener, but I do like to garden. And so in the winter season, it always looks like things are kind of dead and dreary and not a whole lot is happening. And that's how it looks on the surface of things. But being a gardener, I know that there are things that I have planted and that I am, waiting for them to make their appearance, but a lot is going on underneath the surface of the ground as I am waiting for things to pop up. Like I planted my I planted my garlic, and weather has been crazy lately. I don't know about where you live, but where I live, the normal temperatures here, I should be having 40s, 50s, 50s would be average. My friend Karen is here. Hello, Karen. It's good to see you. I can see your comment. Thank you for joining us today. But my garlic is starting to pop its head up already because the temperatures have been absolutely crazy. And to me, it's just kind of a real reflection of what's going on in the world. So I had some things I wanted to share with everyone on that. I looked up a few scriptures on winter, and the first thing I noticed was when I began to look it up, it's the word haref, okay? And it's all about like gathering the crops. It's a het, a resh, and a pay, gathering the crops. And the autumn and the winter season, and by implication, figuratively, a ripeness of age. And so I thought, well, gosh, that's kind of interesting in the seasons that we are that we're in right now, a ripeness of the age. Because when I look around at what all's going on in the world, it feels like we're at a ripeness of the age. So when I searched my scriptures for winter, the one thing I really wanted to share was out of Psalm 74. And it says, "O Elohim, why have you cast us off forever? Why does your anger smoke against the sheep of your pasture? Remember your assembly, which you have purchased of old." Let me just remove my thing here. "The rod of your inheritance, which you have redeemed, this Mount Zion, wherein you have dwelt. Lift up your feet unto the perpetual desolations, even all that the enemy has done wickedly in the sanctuary. Your enemies roar in the midst of your assemblies. They set up their ensigns for signs. A man was famous according as he had lifted up axes upon the thick trees, but now they break down the carved work thereof at once with axes and hammers. They have cast fire into your sanctuary. They have defiled by casting down the dwelling place of your name to the ground. They said in their hearts, let us destroy them together. They have burned up all the synagogues of El in the land. We see not our signs. There is no more any prophet, neither is there any among us that knows how long. O Elohim, how long shall the adversary reproach? Shall the enemy blaspheme your name forever? Why withdraw you your hand, even your right hand? Pluck it out of your bosom. I mean, there's just such a prayer, that heart of prayer in here that's crying out, how long will this season last? How long before we see your vengeance on your enemies as they are persecuting your people? It's a beautiful prayer. Down in verse 12, for Elohim is my king of old, working Yeshua, salvation, in the midst of the earth. You did divide the sea by your strength. You broke the heads of the dragons in the waters. You broke the heads of Leviathan in pieces and gave him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. Now, that makes me think that there is almost like a twofold thing in here. The promise, remembering what did he do for his people before in the wilderness and in Egypt and in our redemption and bringing us out. And then again, breaking the heads of Leviathan in pieces and gave him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. I believe that may be a future promise for us. I don't know what Leviathan tastes like. But whatever it is that Yah is giving us, it'll be good. All right. You did cleave the fountain in the flood. You dried up mighty rivers. The day is yours. The night also is yours. You have prepared the light and the sun. You have set all the borders of the earth. You have made summer and winter. So, these seasons, nothing is out of his hand. He designs every season for its purpose. Remember this, that the enemy has reproached, O Yahuwah, and that the foolish people have blasphemed your name. Oh, deliver not the soul of your turtle dove unto the multitude of the wicked. And that's a beautiful, that's a beautiful thing. He does remember the soul of his turtle doves. That's us. That's his people. He remembers, he knows exactly where we're at, exactly what's happening, and he has a plan for us always. For he is good. Says, oh, deliver not the soul of your turtle dove unto the multitude of the wicked. Forget not the assembly of your poor forever. Have respect unto the covenant, for the dark places of the earth are full of the habitations of cruelty. Yeah, there's a lot of darkness going on in our world right now, and they love the cruel. They love to hide in places of darkness. Oh, let not the oppressed return ashamed. Let the poor and needy praise your name. Arise, O Elohim, plead your own cause. Remember how the foolish man reproaches you daily. Forget not the voice of your enemies. The tumult of those that rise up against you increases continually. So, when I thought about this and I thought about what all is kind of going on in the world right now, a couple of things came to mind. The first one, I like to keep up with the news and what's going on in the world. And then what I like to do is compare that to my scriptures and what Yah says is happening on his time clock. So I wanted to bring up a couple of news things. It's funny. My husband just came home for lunch not long ago, and when he walked in, I could tell he was a little bit downcast. And I said, well, what's going on, hon? And he said, well, my morning just didn't go so well. And I said, well, tell me about it. Tell me what happened. And my husband is a project manager, the only project manager for a custom home building construction company. They mainly do $1 million homes and restoration of old historic homes. And the construction business has been absolutely crazy. He was telling me not long ago that, he used to order, he just went to order, I believe it was a garage door. And he said that, in ordering this garage door, he used to be able to get this thing like within 3 weeks, and now he told me it was 6 to 8 months out. Now, because he does $1 million homes, he works with people that are more used to getting what they want when they want. So it puts him in a hard position to have to tell people on a regular basis, things aren't going to go exactly how you want, when you want, not in the environment that we're in. And there's absolutely nothing I can do about that. I'm going to work as hard as I can for you, but some things are just going to fall apart. So he was telling me today when he came in that he had been working with a company. He has to hire a lot of subcontractors and companies, and so he'd been working with a company that was supposed to come and lay out all the pipes for a propane and install the propane tank, and then he could get that part of the home inspected, and then the next thing, then he could bring in his insulation people and his drywall people and continue on with building this home. He said he'd been talking with these people for 2 months, and, on a weekly basis. Okay, here's, the date, and I'm expecting this, and, really trying to dot every I and cross every T, right? And he says, today the guy shows up and, he's not ready to lay pipe. He just shows up with the tank thinking that the pipe's already been laid. And he said, and I've had weekly conversations with the office manager to make sure that this is going to happen. He said, and now it just throws everything off. My insulation people that are really hard to get, now it's going to be a whole, I've got to put them off and delay this, and he said, and all that falls on me because now I've got to go back to the homeowner and explain, why things are getting delayed. And so that's really tough, but that just seems to be the system that our world is in right now. So I noticed this one story, and this is just like this crazy story, right? Craziness is just going on in the world right now. So on December 25th, there was a Delta flight from Tampa to Atlanta, and there was a lady named Patricia Cornwall. You guys may have seen this, or this video has gone viral, but this Patricia Cornwall is an actress that goes by the same age of Patty Breton. Now, she was upset at a man in his 80s that had taken his mask off so that he could eat and drink something, and she didn't have her mask on. I watched the video, and she was just really just went ballistic, just was so rude and ugly. And he apparently just, in his 80s, he's probably had about enough of all this craziness, right? And so he called her a Karen, and then she really went nuts, and she ends up slapping him, spitting on him, right? And now she's been banned from the flight. Now, it made me wonder, because this woman has been a Playboy model. She appeared in the television show Married with Children, and on an episode of Baywatch. And now get the name of this. The episode she appeared on was Good Girls Gone Bad. So it just made me laugh. I was like, that says it all right there, right? But now, I don't know. Did she do this because she's trying to get TikTok views? I mean, is that the world that we're living in, that she'd risk this felony charge and be put on a no-flight zone? Or was she maybe, drinking, or, what was the problem? But the world just seems to be unstable, right? So then the next thing that I noticed, one of the things that's going on today and should be happening this afternoon, we have had a phone call request come in at the request of Russia between Vladimir Putin and President Biden. And it says that Russia's seeking legally enforceable security guarantees over the place of NATO troops, right? Weapons and missiles in the territory of the Ukraine. And the big concern is this going to spiral into a hot war? Well, a few months back, when everything began to heat up, back last summer or fall, I wanted to look into this because it made me wonder, okay, I see what's manifesting in the spiritual, but I wonder if there's, manifesting in the natural, but I wonder maybe what some of the things in the spiritual realm might be manifesting. So I did a little research. I used to have a job as a researcher, and I love to research things, right? So I was looking at the city, the country of Crimea, and the city there called Kerch. I'm just going to read you because I kind of wrote a little paper, and it's easier for me to read it off to you. I've learned of late, when a major conflict erupts, to ask myself what's really happening. beyond what is being reported on the news. The biggest conflict taking place on the planet as of this moment seems to be centered in the area known as Crimea and the Ukraine. There are several particularly good news articles being put out on a daily basis. Now, this was a while ago. It was by Hal Turner, and he was doing some really good, excellent analysis of this. So I wanted to explore this issue from a spiritual viewpoint. So I spent the day doing a bit of research. Here's what I've discovered. Crimea was originally part of the territory allotted to Japheth, a son of Noah. This territory was further divided amongst Japheth's sons and went to Gomer. Gomer became the Cimmerians with a C, Cimmerians. Okay, the Cimmerians. And the territory is now known either as Southern Russia or Ukraine, dependent upon whose report you believe. As the end of the age approaches, we are becoming more aware as humans that things are not always so simple as they may appear on the surface. And what this is the verse it reminded me of, Ephesians 6:12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. In the book of Enoch, we are given a further look at the events of Genesis 6. When angels described as the Watchers decided to take on human wives and give birth to a race of giants. As a recent article of Michael Snyder's recently discussed, the evidence of giants is with us still. Now, President Trump signed an executive order before leaving office to require full disclosure on what our government knows concerning alien encounters. He also included a budget for our Space Force in the COVID relief package passed before he left office. Exploring and pondering the subject of how the unseen realm of wickedness, principalities, and powers influencing the political agendas of nations in our day is not such a stretch of the imagination anymore. I mean, I used to hear stuff like this, and anytime I heard anything about, aliens or, stuff was, I just went, shh, but I tell you what, today I have a different approach. I am a lot more open-minded to what may be happening and a lot more prayerful about things because I've seen more craziness take place than I ever thought was possible, right? So the coat of arms of the nation of Ukraine gives a lot of information into what may be guiding the powers that be. The focal point is what is called a Khazar-inspired trident. The emblem was adopted on February 19th of 1992. The Empire of Khazaria existed approximately during the years 850 to 1000 CE. All right. I have just kind of a little map of the area, right here, just to share with you a little bit of what's taking place. Okay. All right. So the Khazars and the modern Jews, prophecy updates and commentary. This was on StephenMCollins.com. Stephen M. Collins is a well-respected historian, especially concerning the migration of the tribes of Israel after both houses entered into captivity. Here are some excerpts from his article. It is well documented that numerous Jews lived in the Parthian Empire, and many of them accompanied the migrating Parthians toward Europe through the Caucasus Mountains and into the territory north of the Black Sea. Other Jewish migrations to the region of Khazaria occurred in the centuries prior to the fall of Parthia. As we shall soon document, this region, the Trans-Caucasus north of the Black Sea, through which hordes of Israelites and Jews passed on their way to Europe, was homeland of the Khazars. For many centuries before Khazar rulers adopted Judaism, there had been numerous migrations of the tribe of Judah into the region later called Khazaria. There would have been some remnants of the 10 tribes of Israel in that region as well. Indeed, Jewish sources claim that there were identifiable remnants from the tribes of Issachar, Manasseh, and Simeon living in Khazar regions, and that their archaic Hebrew names and the lack of any Levites among them supported the conclusion that they were not Jews, but Israelites from the 10 tribes of Israel. Since huge numbers of people from the 10 tribes of Israel had lived in or passed through this region from the 8th century BC until at least the 5th century AD, some remnants of Israel's 10 tribes should be expected there. However, this region had many non-Israelites as well. Merchants from every nation found protection and good faith in the Khazar cities. So that really reminded me like of the ancient city of Ephesus being kind of a port city, and it looked like the same type of atmosphere. And if you remember in our teachings from the book of Ephesus, they had a huge temple. Sometimes it was called the Temple of Artemis, sometimes the Temple of Diana, but a huge pagan temple right there. And this is the similarity that I see going on there. Okay, so continuing on from Stephen Collins' article, the dynasty accepted Judaism, but there was equal tolerance for all. It was okay to mix and mingle everything, right? And each man was held amenable to the official judges of his own faith. The Khazars were known by their contemporaries as a white Caucasian race, and they built a great fortress to protect themselves from the marauding Turkic tribes. Yet some of the Khazars were themselves called Turks. They were capitalists known for good faith and practiced religious tolerance. In doing so, they perpetuated Parthian traditions, for the Parthians were famous for honest dealings and religious tolerance. It is also evident that the entire nation of the Khazars did not adopt Judaism. The dynasty, the ruling class, adopted Judaism, while the commoners still practiced their own faiths of Judaism, Christianity, or Islam. So that was that was the part of his article I wanted to share. Now, I had printed this little picture, and I wanted to tell you about this. This is an ancient picture of that area right there. And you can see up at the top, see the temple that was up at the top kind of the mountain. So it says this photo is circa 1900 of the Kerch docks and the site of the Pantacapaeum. Now, I'm not saying that great, but when you get to the word, it's the word Pan, and this is a god that they worshipped, a main god that they worshipped. And it was on the hill. Well, let me just read you this part this is Atlantis, city by the sea. Now, this particular site that I found they believe that this is the lost site of the city of Atlantis. I don't know. I have no earthly idea about that. I just wanted to get to the history of the region. And so that is why I'm reading this to you. So the history of the Empire of Atlantis begins when two ancient lovers meet on a hill located about 5 miles north of a great sea. They began building a city of Atlantis on this hill. Today, their hill is located on the southern edge of a thin peninsula which separated the Sea of Azov from the Black Sea. This hill is called Mount Mithridat. It's also known as Mithridat Hill. The cities that have been built on this hill have long, glorious, and tragic histories. In about 600 BC, Greeks from Turkey founded a city on this hill, which they named Pantacapaeum. This city became known as the City of Pan in honor of the Greek god. This city has remained habituated for 2,600 years and is now known as Kerch, Crimea, Ukraine. The Kerch Pantacapaeum location matches, they say it matches all the criteria for the location of Atlantis City. Okay, I don't know about that. So this Pantacapaeum became the capital of the mighty kingdom of the Bosporus for archaeologists who began excavating the site at the close of the 18th century. Pantacapaeum is unequaled in the Black Sea region in its richness of ceramics, jewelry, sculptures, and a wide range of other artifacts. Now, when I was looking at this, it looks like there's some evidence that some of the oldest pyramids on the planet are actually located in that region, the remnants of those. It says the ancient city is described as a place of harbor for merchants and great abundance, with plenty of places to relax and good and grand gardens and hot spring mineral baths for the elite, and a thriving workforce attended to the ground beneath the palace, in which tunnels were built to excavate red, white, and black rock to further build the kingdom of Bosporus and its capital city of Panticapaeum until it was destroyed by an earthquake. Okay, the historical hill of Mithridat is located in the center of the Crimean city of Kerch. Beneath the hill are numerous underground rock quarries. Now, I find that interesting because I know one of the big struggles in the nations today is over like rare earth minerals, because that's what supports all the electronics and the technology. So I'm wondering this, when it talks about these numerous underground rock quarries, I'm wondering if that's not more of what people are fighting over, right? So beneath the hill are numerous underground rock quarries, rooms, and catacombs, as described in Plato's Atlantis dialogues. 50 feet offshore in Kerch Strait are clearly visible ruins of 7 feet thick stone walls and foundations of guard towers. The foundation stones of a defensive wall, 45-foot thick, have been located submerged in the Taman Bay on the Russian side of the Kerch Strait. So when I see things like this, it just makes me wonder, is there not more going on than what we realize, and I love it because, it is the spirit of Elohim, his Ruach, that speaks to his people and helps us to know how to pray, and maybe gives us insight into things. The reason that whole city of Pan really caught my attention is because it's the known as the god of chaos, right? That would be its major function. This Pan, it's we get the word panic from there, right? And to me, this thing that's come over the nations that really began in 2020, this craziness that we have been dealing with, it has come with a spirit of fear. It has come with a spirit of panic, and of course, as Yah's people, we don't have to live underneath that, for he gives us his shalom, and we're allowed to live in shalom. And that's kind of where I wanted to get to today, because we're living in kind of a traumatic time period, if you would. And so I wanted to share just a little bit about trauma. And I have some experience in that. And when I share my experience, the one thing I would say is, I don't think that my story is unique. I think that, living in the culture that we live in, many people have had a lot of traumatic experiences. And what I love about my story, and I believe that, the people that I'm speaking to today, the people that would be listening in on this type of broadcast are leaders, and the people of Yah that he has put on the planet for such a time as this, in order to bring as many of his children into the kingdom as possible. And so I speak to you in that spirit, that maybe there's some things that you can hear from my story that would help you to recognize other people that might be in trauma, and know that, number one, they're not a lost cause. And number two, anything's possible with the Father, and to give them encouragement and a spirit of hope. And so I'm just going to share a little bit about my life with you. I grew up with a beautiful, classic Southern mama. I am from the South. And, if I had to like compare my mom to a character out of history, I would compare my mom to Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. My mom is classic to the T, but Southern classic. Right? So she's a product of the Deep South, Southern Baptist, baseball, apple pie, beans, snapping south. That's where we are from, right? Um, but but we had a very traumatic start. My mom got married to my dad when she was just 20 years old. Well, she was 19. She was 19 when she got married. She was 20 when she had me. So she was a very young mama. And my dad was a bit of a rabble rouser, to say the least. And he had a big problem with alcohol. He had just come out of a tour of the Navy, and they got married right after that. He was from a small southern town located next to hers. And so they got married, and I am sure that he was a shock to her system. My dad was a mathematical and a musical genius. His job had been in the Navy, and when he got out of the Navy back in the 1960s, to work on computer systems, mainframes. And so literally he was just a genius, but he was also a chronic alcoholic. And he never saw a path out that we know of. He died in a very tragic accident when I was 2 years old. He had just dropped me off at the babysitter's. My mom was at her, here she is. She's 22 years old. They've just moved back because he had quit a job where he had been working, I believe, for Honeywell in the middle of Florida. And he quit and came back home and didn't have a new job yet. And so anyway, he had dropped me off at daycare. She was at her first day on a brand new job, and she gets a call that her husband has been in a tragic accident on a lonely country road on a beautiful day, and died in a car accident. So, it was a very, very tragic incident. And then my mom remarried 1 year later. So she was all of 23. And she marries a man that he is a go-getter, but he had come from a background of tragedy, a lot in that. And so he had a lot of issues, and anger was an issue. And nobody really knew, I don't think, how to, he'd been through a bitter divorce, had 3 children. And I was just 3 years old. And you get impressions from young ages, but the memories aren't clear. But I know that the impression I have kind of at myself at that age was like having kind of a scream or a tragedy inside, but not being able to know how to communicate how I was feeling, because children at that age really don't. But children do experience trauma in that way, right? So mental traumas, when they happen, this is what I've learned from my experience in it. Mental traumas are wounds to the soul. The mind, like any wound, if you just leave dirt in there, the wound develops infection. And if it goes untreated, it can cause like a poisoning, right? And eventually death. Any wound does that. I had a very bad wound when I was 6 years old, where I had fallen in a mud puddle off of a slide, and there'd been a broken Coca-Cola bottle in there. And when my mom took me to the emergency room, they didn't do a good enough job cleaning that out, and it developed blood poisoning. And I spent that summer trying to deal with getting blood poisoning back out of my system. So what I discovered, my family, they were all in politics. My father, my new father, was certainly not a believer. My mother was, but my father was not. And he was gung-ho to make something of himself, to prove to the world that he was going to be a success. And so there were a lot of parties. He was into politics. He was a lobbyist. And so there were just a lot of drinking parties. And that was kind of, if y'all have ever seen like Mad Men, that was just kind of the atmosphere of the day. That's kind of what society was like. And that was kind of what I saw. And what happened to me is I learned from a very early age, and I'm not sure exactly when I learned this, but I do know from asking my mother that my natural father thought that it was hysterical to watch me as I learned to walk come and pick up his glass of alcohol and his friends when they were partying and drink that. So I was all of maybe, somewhere between when a child starts to walk, I don't know, 12, 18 months, all the way up to 2 years old. And I had already learned what alcohol was, and had that experience with it. So I don't really know when, as a child, I decided that that was a good solution for my feelings, but I grew up in a house filled with alcohol and partying. And I knew it was a solution when things didn't feel good, when emotions were out of control, when things hurt. That was a solution that I knew worked, right? And so that was something that I learned to turn to at an early age, and just continued on this, and the cycle, just rolled and continued. And what's interesting for me is that as a child, Yah always had his eye on me. He never forgot me. And there are certain Psalms that are very precious to me when I think about how he counts the number of hairs on our head. He numbers them, not just that he knows how many I have, but he knew when hair number 518 fell out, like that. He knows me in that kind of an intimate way, and always has, from the moment that he created me and knit me together in my mother's womb. And he's done that for all of us, because I am not special in that. That's how he knows his children. Every life is precious to him, right? So knowing that, there were a couple of incidences in my childhood, like there was this Baptist bus that would come through my neighborhood, and I would, that was a really fun thing to do on Sunday mornings, because at Sunday mornings at my house, everybody was still kind of hungover from the party from the night before. So I could get my little self dressed at 6 years old and go stand on the corner and wait for the Baptist bus to come by and jump on the bus and go to church. And that's what I did. And I got baptized that way, and was in church for a while, and then we moved, and that Baptist bus wasn't there on my route anymore. And there was another incident where I was in a youth group at a Methodist church where we had moved to, and we went on this retreat. And this, it was funny because it was out of character for me. I love to be around people, and I love the sun and the waves and all of these things. And so it was a little bit out of character for me to be laying by myself in a hammock and just staring up at the stars. But we were out on this island, and I could kind of just see all the stars, more than I'd ever seen before. And for an instant, for a moment, I just knew that Yah was real and that he loved me, and that was a really fleeting feeling in my life, because one of the worst things, I kind of wrote this out. What I was always striving to do, I was always trying very hard to be a good person, right? And so I was a cheerleader. I participated in youth group. I was a model, just for the local stores and all that. I played softball. I was a gymnast. I played piano. I was on the debating team. Took AP classes, sang in chorus. I was always participating in something. One, I didn't like to be home, because home was a scary place for me. My dad was real angry, and things were not pleasant at home. And so that was just kind of my life. And the fleeting things of Yah would be snatched away when we read about, like, the parable of the seed and the sower. That seed would be sown, but the enemy, it got snatched away like really quickly out of my life. And I continued to go to my solution. And the more that I did, which was alcohol, and the longer that I did that, the harder my heart became. But Yah had a perfect plan, and tragedy and trauma has a way of working things in someone's life. Now, I had a huge trauma in my life. By the time I reached age 29, I had a 3-year-old child, and I had had a new child, and she was 2 months old, and I loved her dearly. And one morning I woke up and she was gone, and it just broke my heart. But it also got my attention because I had become very hard towards the father at that time in my life. I had no room, no interest, and that was not the way I was going to go, you know. And so when she died that day, I walked out into the parking lot, and I was open-minded. I was open-minded because of my broken heart and because of the tragedy. And I remember I just looked up into the heavens and I said, you know, I don't have a clue who you are. I really don't understand you at all, but I believe enough to know that I believe that my child is with you, and that if I ever want to see her again, I'm going to have to figure out who you are, and I'm going to have some kind of relationship with you. And that is what happened. I looked down at my feet, and this was laying at my feet. I keep it in my jewelry box. It's a little baby ribbon. And I remember that day I picked up and I put it in I held it up to the heavens and I said, I'm just going to take that as a yes. And I stuck it in my pocket, and I began a journey with Yahuwah from that point. And one of the ways that he really used to heal me was through music, because when you've lived, you know, this dark existence, for there's a saying I love that says, if you walk 7 miles into the woods, you're going to have to walk 7 miles to get back out. And so healing for me has been incremental. You know, he had to take all those places that trauma had produced things like agony, anguish, you know, confusion, damage, injury, shock, strain, stress, you know, all suffering, right? This is what I had been living in. And he said, well, you know what? I have taken you, and I have taken you out of darkness, and I have translated you into my glorious light. And so in that process, what the miracle for me is when he does that for a person and translates us out of darkness into his marvelous light, there is the benefits of living with Yah. There's contentment, there's health, order came to my mind instead of chaos, healing, blessing, favor, learning to live in joy, peace, comfort, happiness, having calm, you know, and just relief, right, from all those things. So when I look at that and I begin to study that out, I love studying into, you know, the words and what Yah's telling us through these words. So one thing that I looked at was at the very beginning, Genesis 1. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Darkness was there, right? And so I looked up this word darkness, and it's a hosek, dark, the dark, literally darkness, figuratively misery, destruction, death, ignorance, sorrow, wickedness. Now, when I read this, you know, some of the things that you hear from people that do not have a relationship with Yah or are angry with the Father, or, you know, if Yah was good, if God was good, how could he allow this kind of tragedy? People that have gone through things like I did, like losing a child, right? Okay, but when you go to the word and we look, we can see in the beginning, all right, when Yah created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, darkness was on the face of the deep, right? On the face of the deep. Now, I'm going to do some further teaching. I've really dug into this week what that deep is, and I have found some interesting stuff. One, it's in both of the blessings. It's that deep is called Tahom. And when you look at the blessings out of Genesis 49 that Yaakov gave to his children, that deep is in the blessing of Joseph. And when Moses blessed the tribes, also in Deuteronomy 33, again, within the blessing that goes to the tribe of Joseph, there's the deep, right? The deep is in his blessing. And so this week, I do have a YouTube channel, and I'm going to do some teaching on that YouTube channel on the deep. That's what I'm going to focus on this upcoming week. So anyway, back to dark. Primitive root, to be dark, is withholding of a light, right? I always like to take my Hebrew when I'm studying it to try and find the 3-letter root. When Brad Scott was with us, I was a huge fan of Brad Scott, and I learned so much from him, and he was so great at studying the words, and I would listen to his teachings, and he taught me, to go to that 3-letter root. And so that's how I've learned how to study. Transitively, to darken, be black, be or make dark. It's to cause darkness, right? So that's all I'm going to say about that, right? All right. So then what he did, and the Ruach Elohim moved upon the face of the waters, and Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. So darkness has now been overtaken by light. And we know that he's not talking about just the sun and the moon, the stars, because that comes on day 4. So there's this force of light, of energy, that I believe he's talking about. And I found this very interesting. The word is or. It is the aleph, the vav, and the resh. It is illumination in every sense. The sun, the moon, and the stars were created as vessels for light to shine through, right? They're not the producers of the light, but light shines through them because they are vessels. Okay, now this I found very interesting. I've been noticing this in my studies, that we can see kind of opposite sometimes when we're looking at things. So the word blind is also kind of pronounced or, right? So it almost sounds the same. And the reason that it sounds the same is because it's spelled with an ayin, vav, resh. Now, I really like taking things to the Paleo Hebrew. So what I looked and found, I'll just put it up here for you. See at the top, we've got or. So we've got the aleph, and you've got the shape there. It looks like an A laying on its side. We've got the aleph. We've got the vav, and it looks like, a man standing with his hands raised. And then we've got a resh. Now that aleph is like the crown, the strength of the Father. We know the Father's name starts when we say the word Father, we've got an aleph and a bet, right? So that here's the first letter when we're talking about Father. It's the crown strength. And then we've got the vav, which is representative of a nail. And when you look in the Paleo, it kind of looks like a man standing with his hands outstretched, which reminds me of Yahusha nailed to the cross. And then we've got a resh, which is indicative of like the mind of man. So then when I looked at blind, the ayin is shaped just like an eye, and it looks very similar to that all-seeing eye of Egypt, right? And then we have the same letters, right? So when I looked at the primitive root for this word for blind, it's the idea of something having a film over the eyes, of people being blind. So when I look at the Paleo, it tells me if I will look from the place of strength of the Father to the nailed hands, right? The nail, then I see the strength being nailed to my mind, light, the strength of Yah, of my Father, being connected to the way that I think, right? But if I'm going to have blind eyes, I'm going to be looking through an eye that has a film over it, the eye of the world, the eye of Egypt, right? And that's going to be connected to how I think. So the amount of light that I want to walk in, am I going to walk in the way that that is my Father's directed path, or am I going to try to take my strength from that what this world has to offer and walk in that way, right? So one of the other things that I really liked here, one more thing to share with you, Psalm 118. I've been really meditating on this psalm all day, not all day, all week. It just keeps coming up, to where I just feel really impressed to read this psalm. So Psalm 118 says, "Oh, give thanks unto Yahuwah, for he is good." So the first thing that hit me is also that connection back to Genesis 1:1, because when Yah was creating, when the Father was creating, right, he looked at what he had done and said, it's good, it's tov, right? So when I looked at primitive root definitions and things, it says to be good, to be pleasing, to be joyful, beneficial, pleasant, favorable, happy, right? But there's another Torah teacher whom I just love. And to me, he's given the best explanation of what is good. And it's Bill Cloud of Jacob's Tent. And when he explains good, what he says is it is functioning according to its purpose. That when something is good, it is functioning according to its purpose. And if I am going to live as light in a dark world, I think the very most important thing that I can do, that we all can do, is function according to the purpose for which we were created. Now, Isaiah 60 tells us, "Arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of Yahuwah has risen upon you. For even though deep darkness is covering the nations, my light shall be seen on you," right? On his people. There's a light rising up within the midst of us. Now, as we think about that, let's just read Psalm 118. "Oh, give thanks unto Yahuwah, for he is good, because his mercy endures forever. Let Yasharal now say that his mercy endures forever. Let the house of Aharon now say that his mercy endures forever. Let them now that fear Yahuwah say that his mercy endures forever. I called upon Yah in distress. Yah answered me and set me in a large place. Yah was on my side. I will not fear. What can man do unto me? Yahweh takes my part with them that help me. Therefore shall I see my desire upon them that hate me. It is better to trust in Yahweh than to put confidence in man. It is better to trust in Yahweh than to put confidence in princes. All nations compassed me about. This, when I saw that, it gave me like a time period marker. This, when I see that, all nations, because we know that at the end, it's all the nations are in an uproar. So when I saw that, it was like, this is a real time period marker, right? That tells me that this psalm very much can be applied to the days that we are now living in, these last days, right? All nations compass me about, but in the name of Yahweh will I destroy them. They compass me about, yea, they compass me about, but in the name of Yahweh I will destroy them. They compass me about like bees. Now, I can tell you, my husband and I are beekeepers, not professional beekeepers, not very good beekeepers, amateur beekeepers that are learning through our mistakes. But we have learned, we have a black dog, and what we discovered is bees really hate the color black. And so we've learned to wear white and to keep our dog inside, because we took our dog out with us and we were in white, but she was black, and the bees got upset, and boy, did they compass her about. And she, poor little thing, she got stung. It was a disaster. It was a kind of a traumatic day for us. So I know what that's like when the bees compass you about, right? They compass me about like bees. They are quenched as the fire of thorns, for in the name of Yahweh I will destroy them. You have thrust sore at me that I might fail, but Yahuwah help me. Yah is my strength and song and is become my Yeshua. The voice of rejoicing and Yeshua is in the tabernacles of the righteous. The right hand of Yahweh does valiantly. The right hand of Yahweh is exalted. The right hand of Yahweh does valiantly. I shall not die, but live and declare the works of Yah. See, I can live with confidence and not be afraid of what man is going to do to me because I am not appointed unto death. Does that mean that I think that this flesh is going to live forever? No. But when I am raised up to meet him, I shall be changed and I will be like him. I don't have to worry about death. I am an eternal being. And right now I'm having I'm living out an existence, right? But I'm a spiritual being, an eternal being, and I'm not going to know death as those that do not know him, right? Yah has chastened me sore, but he's not given me over unto death. Open to me the gates of righteousness. I will go into them and I will praise Yah. This gate of Yahuwah into which the righteous shall enter. I will praise you, for you have heard me and are become my Yeshua. The stone which the builders refused has become the headstone of the corner. This is Yahuwah's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. This is the day which Yahuwah has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Remember that song? But see, now I know this day that I'm living in, this day that we're experiencing, this is the day that Yahuwah has made. And I can rejoice and be glad in it, no matter what it brings. And hopefully my light will shine out to others and be a comfort unto them. Save now, I beseech you, O Yahweh. O Yahweh, I beseech you. Send now prosperity. Blessed be he that comes in the name of Yahweh. We have blessed you out of the house of Yahuwah. El is Yahuwah, which has showed us light. Bind the sacrifice on the feast day with cords, even unto the horns of the altar. You are my El, and I will praise you. You are my Elohim, and I will exalt you. Oh, give thanks unto Yahweh, for he is good. He is Tov, and his mercy endures forever. So I thank you so much for coming to join me today. I hope you'll come back and see me next week. And I'm going to sign out now. And see if I can get that part right. All right. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again next time. All right. Sorry, I'm searching for what I need to play. Underneath banners. All right.
Watching the time just ticking. Clock runs around, days in and out. Can't really call it living. Somewhere I let light go dark. But here's where my new story starts.